Hey there team, welcome back to the channel, welcome back to Worth It Then, Worth It Now, an ongoing side project I run here on this channel where I look at games of yesteryear, specifically 10 years plus removed, or exactly 10 years ago, because this came out on the 10th of Feb 2016, at least on Steam, and I try and line them up with a sale where possible, no exception here. Today we're looking at Rise of the Tomb Raider. It's on ultra deep sale, like you can pick it up for $5 or $6, and man, you should. It really holds up. I had an absolute blast going back into this. Oh, before it escapes me as well, I am trying to grow this channel, and I'm not really one for asking, but if you enjoy what I'm doing here, you know, daily classics on sale, I feel it's a fair service, then feel free to drop a sub, drop a like, that sort of thing. So we actually looked at the original Tomb Raider of this modern trilogy. So this was a reimagining trilogy. You have Tomb Raider, you have Rise of the Tomb Raider, and then what is it, Shadow of the Tomb Raider, which I never actually played the third one, and doing this trip down memory lane kind of gets me excited to check that out when it, I don't know, becomes 10 years old in a couple of years' time. Because as much as I really like the first one of this reimagined series, I might even go ahead and say that I liked this more. To me, even just playing it this morning, marveling at the graphics and realizing that all the mechanics from, you know, busy work to soft Metroidvania skills, abilities, you know, locked things that I can't do yet, caves that I need rope arrows for, etc. All the moving parts all married together with an okay story, like it does the job. It's an Indiana Jones-esque following Dad's trail with a protagonist that I quite like, even if she is pretty blank. She's supposed to be a window that you look through. Anyway, all of that bundled together, to me, I find myself making an internal argument that the high-end games industry, AAA games industry, peaked around about here. Don't get me wrong, I'm thankful for the job that I have and the connections I have, and on the main channel looking at modern new releases, you know, and just continuing to consume as one does in this space. But if you released this game today, with these graphics, now granted they were ahead of their time, and I'm using HD packs and it's in 4K and all this sort of crap, but it's running smoothly, flawlessly. If you've got an older PC and you want to actually see something that looks rad, check this out, right? But again, if you release things at this caliber of all of those moving parts together today, I'd be happy to pay full price. And it really does make you wonder, what have we done with the last 10 years? I know I'm being a little bit derivative and I'm going a bit off topic, but man, it just excites me even more to be doing this weird side project with this channel, because like I said, this is day and date 10 years old today. I'm excited for, you know, the next 6 months of moving forward through the last 10 years of games. Anyway, Rise of the Tomb Raider, Crystal Dynamics, part of their ongoing reimagined series. I can't quite remember closely, but I think the third one might have faltered in the eyes of some, and perhaps it was a good thing that they hung it up when they did, but that's beyond the scope. The argument that it peaked here is probably strong. I'd agree with it. I really like all the moving parts. It builds heavily upon the previous Tomb Raider game. Again, we covered that not that long ago, which comparatively is showing its age, but still in turn holds up as an excellent must play. Again, I've only just ducked back in for a little bit of B-roll, but it jumps around a lot. It has a very strong opening. A lot of this game is set in Siberia, like a snowy sort of tundra, which has its own beauty, of course, but the opening of the game has you jumping to a prologue, climbing up the mountain to get to where you are, and then jumping back to a previously on at home in you know, apartments and Lara's mansion in cutscenes, and then you also play a fairly large, like half-hour chunk in a different area that led you to Siberia in the desert or whatever, right? So you jump around a lot of biomes. It really does showcase how beautiful the engineers across different environments. But it's the same sort of thing, right? It's kind of a third-person run-and-gun action, but investigative tomb raiding, dare I say, experience. You know, basic puzzles with a bit of a physics twist to them. The first game was really big on like fire, and it had a sort of internalized basic rule set of propagating fire, at least within the realm of like a puzzle arena, and it was great. It was satisfying. This already is leaning into rising and falling water levels in the opening, and it's good. It's one of those things that I think makes the game more, like helps it stand above whatever else was coming out at the time. But also, I think sometimes people forget about that component, and that makes me think of even like Half-Life 2, right? Everyone loves Half-Life 2, everyone fondly remembers Half-Life 2, but I think a lot of people forget how much of that game hinges on physics-based puzzling, maneuvering floating barrels to push up ramps or throwing boxes into barnacles to get by. Same sort of thing is happening here in this Tomb Raider series. Even without those puzzles, it stands alone on its own fine, but they kind of complete it, and none of them are too fiendish because they are very set piece, they are very handcrafted, but it is satisfying all said. So a lot of the stuff is still carried over from here, going to campfires, which are used as like a fast travel. It's a little bit more realized in this game. Like, you could go back and forth in the first Tomb Raider, and again, this is for the reimagined series. I don't really have an affinity for the actual OG Tomb Raider at all, and it's very exciting to see that they've announced another reimagining, and it's going to be done by Crystal Dynamics, and it's going to be more, big titty, super athletic, dual-wield pistols fighting dinosaurs original Tomb Raider Lara. So I'm curious, because if Crystal Dynamics is doing it, I think it's in good hands, but is the studio even remotely the same 10 years later? Who can say? How many studios have we seen rise and fall? Anyway, it's got a lot of the tie-over from the first game in this series. Building, crafting, skill upgrade trees, it's all still there. And what I was getting to was, you will probably use the fast travel system a lot more in this. It is a lot more of an open world, as opposed to, how to put it, the first one was a lot more linear. There were these arenas that you'd moved through, right? Instances that you could travel back to go and scrub up, collectibles and that sort of thing. But generally speaking, the focus wasn't that big on that, because it was still a first outing, a bit of a proof of concept. This is much more realized, and I still remember fondly at launch double backing and going back to tombs and unlocking areas and things that I didn't have the skills for originally. So like I said, there's some light Metroidvania. I'm not 100% sure if double backing is part of progress, but it's definitely satisfying, at least going back and unlocking all the side stuff. I was thinking about it as well, because I think retroactively, through the eyes of a modern gamer, this series is very girl bossy, right? Lara is kind of headstrong and not know-it-all. Like, I actually find her like super palatable. She's not a bitch or anything like that, but she is driven, right? And they've already covered that off in the opening with her friend Jonah, how her obsession, as admirable as that is, it's costing her everything else on the periphery, which is interesting, something to think about. Like, as driven and focused as she is, she's kind of her own poison, which can be said for all things obsession. But whereas a lot of stuff released these days, if it is going to be a girl boss, let's say, or a female lead, it's usually very extreme and on the nose. But that's also matched by the extreme backlash of kind of zero tolerance from a lot of gamers to that. It's like, female girl boss? Nah, not going to play it. And, that's less of a statement on whether it's well done or not, and more about how did you end up at that position. But it is interesting, because I think this Lara gets a pass, for me personally, because of the sort of, I don't know how else to describe it other than like torture porn, right, aspect. It was really novel, and arguably more in the first game. The idea that she is a tiny little frame, 5 foot nothing, spindly little chick, right? A part of making her believable means she's kind of got to suffer through all of this, and suffer she did, and she does in this game as well. I've already had a few gruesome deaths, but that's always been a hallmark of this series, is just, you fall in a spike trap, she gets absolutely obliterated, she gets smashed, bashed, screams. The chick in the voice booth must be having a field day with just all the different emotes and screams, but I think that's what kind of gives her a pass. Dare I say, it strays into masculine meritocracy, or just meritocracy in general. If this chick wants to swing it with the rest of them and wants to be her own Indiana Jones or Nathan Drake, then she's kind of got to get her head fucking smashed in and probably take the hits harder, because she's a wiry framed chick. And I feel like the devs understood that. Even in one of the opening cutscenes in this, this, she gets jumped by a home invader dude, and it's a one-on-one situation, and she gets the shit beat out of her, and her mate Jonah comes in third parties to bail her out. And, you know, this is the sort of realism that most would expect and ask for in a lot of modern games, but you often won't get with a female lead. It's a credit to the writers understanding that you can write a female main character who is tough and fearsome and strong in all the right ways, but also there is a level of grounded realism that makes her a much more likable character. When she's fallen off cliffs and getting smashed into rocks and getting her head punched in and all that sort of stuff. Now, I'm not necessarily saying I revel in that, but I think it goes a long way to making a much more acceptable main character that is ultimately just tiny. And just some final thoughts there, but I've never really put it in the front of my mind. I've always liked this series. I've always liked the way they did Lara here. I really do wonder how people receive the new version of her. I wonder if there'll be a really weird intersect or an internal meltdown of some people, the fans of the original series that want sexy Lara back, but like, if you're going to make her an absolute girl boss, are those same people not going to like said version? I don't know. Anyway, for my part, Rise of the Tomb Raider is absolute peak AAA gaming. I love all the moving parts, all the systems. I think all the graphics, soundtrack, effects, all of it is absolute primo and would and does hold up in current year. You'd be mad not to pick it up for a couple of bucks and give it a go, plus its predecessor, and presumably plus the third one. But yeah, at a certain point, I'm just going to go around in a circle, so let's wrap it up there. Pick it up, check it out, sub if you haven't already. Might just leave it there for the time being, and I will catch you guys on the next one.